So because I promise we're going to we will not just bitch about this behind bars, but behind the camera, but also in front of it as well. We are the Conservative Echo Chamber. Welcome to our palace. Hold on. There we go. Whiny fucking babies, Josh. That literally the whiniest. That one girl trying to.
I'm never allowed to vote.
Fucking hired you! Oh my god! Seriously, it is like watching a toddler have a meltdown while in an adult body.
They have a vote.
That's the scary. Yeah, and remember, they got the president fired not because he did anything wrong, not because he was racist, but because he didn't overreact to something that he had no power over.
Because feels. That is why he was fired.
Oh my god! I do not advocate violence against people, but there are some people that I just want to smack really hard and be like, grow the fuck up, you little child. And this is one of those people. Seriously. And really, he should have just been like, oh, I'm sorry that I didn't get you a pacifier today, miss. You're expelled. Go home and have your mommy buy one for you, okay? Really, that's what he should have said. That's what the president should have said, but he has no balls. And like Bill Whittle did point out, really, if he can't handle children and steps down because children incorrectly call for his resignation, and then he resigns in a way that affirms them, it's seriously, it's what kind of an asshole do you have to be to blame someone for something that they didn't do, that they couldn't control, and then make them apologize for it while stepping down? Oh my god, what the fuck? Seriously, you're not allowed to you force them to kill themselves. The Japanese, remind me, Josh, what's the name for Japanese ritualistic suicide? Because that's what this was. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, wow. I know what you're talking about. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name.
In ancient Japan, there was a term for when a dishonored enemy he would lose, and because in Japan losing was such a dishonor, they would gut themselves with a knife. And it's called ritualistic suicide. Okay, we're gonna be lame. We're gonna Japanese ritualistic suicide because we've got to be accurate on this. Seppuku. Turn this music down. Ritualistic suicide is what these people are doing. No, sorry, this is just retarded. Just retarded. And this is kind of
not fair to Japanese ritual suicide, John.
It's so...
I take offense to that.
On behalf of the Japanese, you a culture appropriating bastard.
Hey, the colonies.
By the way, I just want to point out this Nazi swastika written in shit, which nobody has a picture of. Us being in the iPhone and Android device generation, you can't take a piss without taking a selfie. And somehow, this guy sees it. I'm wondering, is there some kind of troll who just went there? And this must be what happened because there's no other explanation. Either he lied or there's some asshole who drew a Nazi symbol and shit and just waited in one of the stalls for someone to see it. And he's just gaslighting everybody. And as soon as someone saw it and ran away, he went and wiped it off really quick.
Or these easily triggered children are that's so offensive.
Because here's the thing. If someone was actually a Nazi, an actual Nazi would not write their own symbol of their pride in shit. Any more than a Christian would draw a cross in shit. Any more than a Black Lives Matter person would draw, whatever their flag is in shit. You wouldn't do hashtag Black Lives Matters in your own feces because that would be real. Well, okay. First off, let's address the issue of using fecal matter as an ink. It's a little bit disgusting.
It's the medium of the people, don't you know?
But seriously, who the fuck are these children? Some guy drives by you and says, "Nigger," out the truck. And you don't even know if they're from that campus. And
I get that every other week.
And the president is supposed to somehow is there a fucking magical switch that I don't know about? Okay, is there some kind of Josh? Is there a magical switch in the president's like under the desk? It switches, and there's just like this magical dome of safety that prevents outside people from coming in and saying like idiotic shit.
Break glass in case of N-word.
Maybe I missed it. Maybe I missed that part because apparently now the president is supposed to have the magical power to prevent outside forces from coming in and being offensive. And you heard that one girl who was shouting at her Yale president, going, "Why the fuck did we hire you? This is supposed to be a safe place. This is supposed to be our home." It's like, no, you're there to learn. You graduate with a degree.
Okay? Don't get me wrong. I know why they're not going to correct her. Think about it. If students were coming in and paying thousands of dollars for an education, with all the money going to useless nonsense,
this is supposed to be one of the most rigorous.
No one realizes they're not getting anything.
Like, it's called college. It's not called fucking safe space. Okay? You go to college and you take college classes and you go to a college professor to learn things so you can get your college degree. Like, if you want a safe space, grab a fucking pacifier, sit in your room, turn on the TV, and watch fucking My Little Pony.
You know what really bothers me about this?
What bothers you
really
about
bothers me? Those of you who know me, my friends know that I didn't get to finish college all in one go.
Mm-hmm.
I had to wait 3 years between my second to last and last semester. During that time, I did more reading in the first few months than I did in the entirety of my stay in college, and more than these babies have read in their entire lives. I'm tempted to say combined. But let me tell you something. Those 3 years away, they taught me a number of things. Going back taught me something very important. One, reading on my own, reading as I did, I realized I was better read than most of the students who are now in my class 3 years later. But most importantly, I read what it meant to be educated. I read about the Greeks, I read history, I read sciences, I read everything I get my hands on.
And what is that one battle that you keep referencing constantly? I swear, every cast we've had in the past 2 or 3 months now, every single time you talk about this one battle, it's Battle of, not Thermopylae,
well, if you're talking...
It was the Byzantine War.
Peloponnesian War.
The Peloponnesian War. Every time it's just like, the Peloponnesian War, John, don't you understand? And
it's the war that explains all of the others. You could forget all of the names, all of the battles.
I'm ignorant.
Still.
See, Josh is of the two of us, I'm like the logic person. Like, I start with certain philosophical precepts and I build a whole logical base off that and reach conclusions, and then I say, "Oh my god, I discovered this thing," and Josh is just like, "Yes, I read about that in the Peloponnesian War. I'm glad you finally reached my level of knowledge, John." And I'm like, you motherfucker, man. I'm just sitting here in my white t-shirt, man.
Right.
You have to provide a home for me, Johnson. Who cares about intellectual rigor, man? You got to give me into this emotional safe space. Of course, and they're not even looking for. By the way, safe space is such a bullshit term. What they really mean is, I want a place where nobody can disagree with me. That's what that means. It's not where nobody can disagree with anyone, because then you wouldn't have universities. You just have everyone locked away in their rooms. It's
no one can disagree with
one movement that they just want totalitarian control of the narrative of all the information. They want their version to be reality with no interruptions, with nobody questioning it. The sun is actually green. There is a flat earth, and you are not allowed to say anything about it or post any picture showing the curvature of the earth, because if you do, you're a bigot and a racist.
Media, you have to stay out. Media isn't welcome here. Hey, let me get some muscle. Let me get some guys to chase.
Okay.
How dare the media not pay attention to us?
I love that. I was like, really? And the funny thing is that in like things about the Tea Party and stuff, I've never seen any. Okay, to compare this take this all the way back to 2008 and 2009 when there were Tea Party rallies going on. I never saw a person say, "Oh, we're not allowing media in here." Now, there was concern voiced about being misrepresented, but that happened regardless of whether or not Tea Partiers were there or there was interviews or not. But never at one point did they say, "Oh, we don't allow media here." Also,
they brought out their own cameras in order to cover.
Yeah, no. Every single time there someone said, "Oh yeah, they called me this word over at over at this rally, they're like, well, here's our 10,000 hours of footage. I don't see it being said here. Do you have footage? Do you like where did you get this accusation? I hope you're not making it up, because we're being totally honest with you guys. And this is like the total flip. I mean, look, how can you have an anti-racist rally where you segregate people by color? Can you?
How can you have an anti-racist rally when your main means of identifying people who are not pale skin are people of color? Now, see, I've been studying another language lately, and I've decided just in my spare time to take another look at English and the way the English language handles information. You know, people of color and colored people are virtually indistinguishable. In fact, people of color, if anything, is actually a stronger identifier than colored people. Colored could just be incidental. Oh, they have color on them. People of color.
Well, you and I already discussed the topic of whether or not
characteristics.
I don't know. I just
seriously, they picked the more racist of the two. If you could argue any of them are racist, personally, I was actually
going to go with the more British term of the two, the people of color. Don't you know? They're not colored people. They're people of color.
People. That's
the way I see it.
Color.
People. It's like, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like someone who's being racist without trying to say like I don't want to say colored people because that would sound racist. They're people of color.
I don't know. Okay, like I said, it's basically the same. And let me say one thing in the outright. We can't talk about the university without defining our terms quick. We're going to be throwing some words around. Racism is one of them. And I committed a faux pas. I apologize. It's not racism. It's racialism. Now, racialism is you identify particular ethnic groups as having particular characteristics. When people say most people are racist, what they actually mean is most people are racialist, as in they believe that certain ethnicities have certain characteristics. Racialism is healthy when controlled. When you are open to evidence and can be convinced that a particular assumption about a particular ethnicity can be proven wrong.
Not talking about statements like white man can't jump.
Technically, it's a bit of a gray area, but for example, white men can't jump is racialist. Racism is what you do with racialist points of view. Racism is when you act on it, saying white people suck because they can't jump.
Well, I thought you could have a point of view that was, well, this feels like really semantic, and I don't even know where to go with this. To be blatantly honest with you.
I understand, but you see, this is important because people keep saying America's racist, America's racist, America's racist. No, they're not.
Well, see,
no, they're not.
In my mind, the distinction has always, instead of being racial racist, my determining notion has always been between racist and for lack of a better word, culturalist, or discriminating between cultures.
Well, I do that.
Because, saying, oh, this guy is black, he's a nigga, that would be a racist thing. Like to say you're black, therefore I don't have to, respect you, treat you in a certain way. I can, treat you as less than equal, whatever. That would be, racist. That would be a no-no, right?
Right.
But
I would hope that would be a no-no, John.
But to say, oh, you come, whatever your culture is, because we have wiggers as well as, people of color. I know, right?
Okay.
Shut up. Anyways, the point
I think I can help you because there's a third term that I think ties all of it together.
Maybe this intersects with what I was about to say.
It's possible that there are racists. Most people are racialists, but the big division is not based on race. I would suggest to you that America doesn't have a problem with racism, but rather has a problem with tribalism. Think about it.
Okay,
if it were actually about ethnicity,
that's kind of where I've headed.
Clarence Thomas. Why would they hate Thomas Sowell?
Right.
It's not about race, it's about tribe.
Yeah.
Tribalism is what's causing all of our woes.
Okay.
In regards to race wars, if you will.
Well, and here's the thing is for me to say, for example, that thug culture or black culture or gang culture,
which sucks that those two ever became conflicted.
Three kind of gray sort of intersecting cultures. I'm going to say that black people don't suck, but those cultures are problematic, which is a hashtag triggering word. Because if you have a culture where like, you know, black kids go to school and they try to do well, and then their other peers are telling them, oh, if you're doing well, then you're just trying to suck up to the white man. Right? We've had this conversation before. Like, that's a problem. That is a bad culture. Like, there is no white guy that I know of. There is no institutionalized white person who's going around and encouraging black women to have a 70% illegitimacy rate. There is no white person going around saying,
go around with
black people, don't use condoms. Don't use condoms. Just fuck indiscriminately. Don't care who the father is. Don't develop any sort of relationship. Just put the penis in your vagina. No white people are doing that. That's not me. That's not any white people I know. The only interaction here that would be encouraging that would be the welfare state, which makes it beneficial, but that is, you know, controlled by white people. But like, you have the choice of accepting welfare or not. You have the choice of closing your legs or leaving them wide open, of putting on a condom or taking it off. I can't control that. No white person can come up. I don't know. Josh, have you seen any like white guys run up to a black couple having sex and just like rip off the condom and like just come inside her?
Or maybe Andrew Clavin was right, and maybe they really do live on Ganunu 12, where condoms melt in the heat of the triple sun.
I don't know. Maybe that's where they just get in their space elevators and teleport back at midnight. I don't know. So this whole notion of racism being the cause of black people's problems, I wish, and if I had the money, I would totally do a study on this. I want to find out what the stats look like after you compensate for the effects of a culture. Because I'm almost certain after you compensate, if you are able to normalize,
I think I can help you.
The effects of like black kids telling other black kids don't do good at school, don't talk well using proper grammar, or else don't talk good. Yeah, don't talk good, or you are sucking up to the white man. Don't respect cops because then you're trying to suck up to the pigs. Don't do all this shit. Like, once you normalize for that and get that out of the question, I am almost 100% convinced that there's no difference between person white and black. That any effects of institutionalized racism is nil at this point.
I think I can help you, John.
Okay. Help
His name is Thomas Sowell.
You mention his name a lot, Josh.
He actually did a study. He actually looked into it. And fun fact, not as extensive as you and I might like, but I think I can give you a few tidbits of information that might speed things along a bit. For example, he noticed that in terms of performance, in terms of standards of living, income, recent immigrants from Africa scored very high, higher than the average white population. Now, mind you, it's only certain sections of Africa.
Right. I mean, obviously, if you have people from the Congo coming over, there might not.
Even Congo actually does okay.
Really?
Now,
Congo
South Africa
is high rate and all that?
It depends. There are regional differences. For example, you can't just say from China. You have to say, are they coming in from Hong Kong, or are they coming in from an affluent area? Are they coming in from...
Right.
Because if you're moving in from China to Chinatown, you're in perpetual poverty. Same is true in this case. When someone moves here from Africa, from certain countries, especially South Africa, and I forget the other one, Egypt, I think is pretty good too. Then they do very well, first generation. Second generation, they start out even better than first generation in terms of income, but everything else starts to slip. By third generation, they are below average.
Because by third generation, they're no longer African, they're African.
This is true in most cases.
Or in this case, they're African.
Oh, I knew the pun was coming, and I still wasn't ready. Oh.
This
is a phenomenon.
Call me racist for that. I don't care because it's not racist. It's just stupid. It was a really stupid joke. It was. I know.
No. There are actually several European countries where the opposite is true. When they first get here, it's awful, and then when kids reject their parents' values, they actually rise up to the median. Although in most cases, the immigrants tend to do very well, but the more they assimilate into certain societies, they will either rise or fall.
Right. Well, because if you're black in America, it is almost, I hate to say inevitable, but to a large extent, it's almost inevitable that you will be sucked in some form into black culture because every person of the same color as you is going to start saying, hey, you're black. They're treating you like this. And when you have an entire community of people telling you a specific message that is radically different, you're going to, people get sucked into that, especially when they grow up with generations of it. Yeah, and white people, there is no narrative amongst the white people, as it were, that says you have to say this to white people. If you get into black culture, there's a whole narrative like, people are racist against you. White people, secretly look down on you. There's microaggressions and all this shit. And over here in white land, it's like, you get up, you go to work, you come home, you have a beer. That's what's fucking going on in white land. And over here, it's like, watch out for the white man. He's going to come get you. Watch out for the police. They really don't like you.
And just send the popo after you.
No, the Pope, exactly. And of course, if you grow up, or if the moment you become, the moment you arrive in America, you're being told this by everyone of the same color as you, and they're telling you that it's because of your color, and then they tell that to your children, and then to your children's children.
Now they don't even have to wait to come over here. Now they're sending the message over mass media. That's why I said it depends, because in recent years, the trend is actually worsening because they're coming over here assuming that things are this way.
Great. That's lovely.
This was a little while after Thomas Sowell did his initial findings, and so I'd like to see some more substantial up-to-date numbers. Although,
because
before
now
we leave this,
you do make a good point, because now you can actually measure not just the difference between blacks in America and the culture that affects them, and people coming in, but now you can also measure the effects of the messaging specifically, because now you can say, if we compare the two, these people who come in, with a clean slate in their mind of America are coming in and doing amazingly, whereas these people who are coming in convinced that America is racist are doing terribly. Now you can go, look, these are the numbers. The people who think that they're going to fail are going to fail, and the people who don't think that they're going to fail are not going to fail. So you guys sitting here covered in your own piss and shit and getting money from the welfare state and talking about how terrible white people are to you, it's your own fault. Suck it up, get rid of your welfare, go get a fucking job, work your ass off, and make something better for yourself and your kids.
And by the way, before you even say it, John will remember this particular stat.
Okay.
This is also from Thomas Sowell, though others have mentioned it.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Before you say, we can't help it, this is a legacy of slavery. Fun fact. Black average family income compared to whites in the South, the same as or higher. Black fidelity rates, much higher. Poverty, significantly lower. In Jim Crow America.
And that was with the active, with not just microaggression bullshit. This was actually like, no, there are white people who actually want to go out and get you. During
the KKK's prime, guys. Yeah. In the height of the Depression, even. Just a thought.
Gee, Josh, you mean that the way a person views himself might be more important than the way other people view him?
Well, because think about it. If it were the way people viewed themselves, then what's changed? If it's how other people view you, then white people should be dead. Because one, this idea that there's some white identity, that in itself is a little strange. There is no white race. Trust me, I live in Jersey.
Yeah, that's the thing is every time a black person starts talking about how white people think, I just sit here going like, oh my God, listen, bitch. The way you, this is kind of the problem is there's this whole notion amongst the black culture that because they are oppressed, they don't have to listen to anyone else's opinion, which is probably, look, if you want to build bridges, and I had this discussion with someone earlier on Twitter, if you want to build bridges between one group of people and the other, then both sides have to understand each other, right? So you can't be a black person and say, I don't have to understand you, but you have to understand me because I'm oppressed and you're an oppressor. Because fundamentally, that means that you're going to be an asshole and the conversation is going to go nowhere. And on the other side, you know, white people, like both sides need to understand each other. And if you're sitting here, you know, if you're a black person and you sit there and talk about how white people think and like every white person is either ignoring you or shaking their heads or rolling their eyes or going like, no, that's kind of wrong. It's probably because Josh, I'm going to say something that may kind of go over.
Trigger warning.
It could be because you're fucking wrong. I'm just saying.
This is not a space for you to make rational arguments. This is a home.
Because here's the thing is I have been to nearly all 50 states for both, you know, some of them extended periods of time, some of them short periods of time. I've lived in California, I lived in Pennsylvania, I've been up to Canada, I've been all the way down to Florida, I've been to Texas, I've been to the Grand Canyon, all that fucking shit. And I will tell you what, when I run into black people, really there's only one question. It's actually the same question I ask myself when I run into any other person. It's, is this person cool or not? Are they someone that I'm going to like enjoy interacting with, or am I going to be like, I'm going to ignore you because you're kind of a dick, or you're not very intelligent, or you're just not here right now, or you're stupid or whatever. And it's become my observation that black people tend to have one of two modes. And by the way, I hate fucking statistics. I really do. But when you segregate yourself, you create that stereotype. Okay? You know, if we talk about, for example, like skater kids, the reason why stereotypes exist for skater kids is because many of them choose to act in a group like in certain manners and dress in certain ways and engage in certain behaviors. And so those stereotypes exist. Right? So when I interact with black people, it'll be one of two ways. It'll kind of vaguely go. Either they'll be chill as like they'll be fine, they'll be normal human beings.
All right. I know. We just lost
follow
the
follow me here. A lot of them will act like normal people, and it'll be like whatever, like, hey, what's up, dude? And then the other half will act like stereotypical fucking like black culture people who are like, oh my God, you're white, I can just ignore you and talk really loud like an asshole, and I'm only going to acknowledge other people of color, and I'm going to like crack really loud, crass jokes. And by the way, I wish it wasn't fucking like this. I wish I could just walk up and talk to but like when literally half the black people I run into act in the specific way that pushes other people away, and it's very intentionally pushing other people away based on skin color, I can only react to who they're being, right? I can be me, but who I am, I treat people not like they're treating me, but people who are acting like assholes, I avoid. So when I have to avoid half of the black people I'd run into, not because I don't like black people naturally, but because they're acting like assholes, there's a problem. And on the other half, there are a lot of black people that I have and by the way, I fucking hate that I have to qualify myself in this fucking way, but there's going to be some idiot who's going to go, he called some black people assholes. Yeah, there are white assholes too. There are Mexican assholes. There are fucking Chinese assholes.
There's a whole rainbow of
stuff. If you go by cultures, a lot of Aztecs were assholes. A lot of them, way more than black people. But if you go back far enough in history, you had some of the first people who were actually enslaved were white people by people who were of color. I mean, the word slave. The word slave has a root Slav, which is a fucking white person who were, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it not, it was the Moors who were slave owners, correct?
Well, not just the Moors. They were relatively new customers compared to...
Right. And then there's like the whole fucking shit that was going on in Africa. Black people in Africa were enslaving other black people in Africa way before the white people said, hey, let me in on this shit. Way before that happened. Right?
Then there was Asia.
And there was all fucking Asia. And let's not forget that even if you go, more recent in time, like the Irish were slaves before black people came over.
And after.
And after. And the Chinese. And yet somehow the Irish and the Chinese, despite the fact that the Irish have flaming fucking red hair that can easily identify themselves as separate from regular white people, and the Chinese people are very distinct from European.
No one from China's blending anywhere.
Exactly. But somehow these two people group, because they're not going on talking about fucking race all the time, are totally fine. It's weird. It's almost strange. It's almost like culture has more to do with it than anything else. So yeah, so this black culture, and it's not really surprising when you have a culture that basically says white men are evil, be afraid of white men. You gotta help a brother out, and all this bull. And I'm just spouting bullshit right now, but for stereotypes. But when you have these stereotypes that are built into a culture that rigidly enforces itself based on race, then the people that it enforces that rigid culture upon are going to act according to that culture, and they're going to weed themselves out in that manner.
Just a thought. So,
in other words, if you want white people to treat you regularly, and you're going, why are these white people? I'm acting like an asshole to all these white people. Why are they treating me like I'm an asshole?
Don't understand it.
Don't understand. Maybe just don't be. I'm just saying, don't be an asshole. And of course, now you have guys like Tommy Sotomayor, who is starting. It's kind of interesting because he had a whole video. But I discovered him when he actually did a video. And if you want to find, like, if you're racially sensitive and you really want to broaden your horizons and listen to another black person, Tommy Sotomayor. Thomas Sowell would be a good start. Tommy Sotomayor would be another good person to go into. He actually did a whole video in the past year where he actually talked about how he went down to like Arkansas or Arizona, like which was supposed to be just full of racist white people. And his entire experience there was of like white people being the most helpful, wonderful people ever. And he couldn't live in a black neighborhood because people just robbed him blind. Other black people, mind you. And that's when he went, white people are treating me nice and black people are treating me like shit. I wonder if there's a connection.
See, I live about, if I were to sneeze, I would go over a town border. The town next to us, about a sneeze away, it's a very large immigrant population. Seriously, half of the customers who come into the store where I work don't even speak English. So that's how fresh they are to this area. Either that or they've been living here for decades and still don't speak English.
Just to clarify, and I'm going to sound really racist, but do they not speak English or do they not speak English?
Well, most of them it's English. There are actually very few people who speak English around here.
Actually, you said there was a
laundromats. That sounds awful, but it's true.
The Chinese people own the laundromats. There must be a front. There must be some kind of crime syndicate. Three Tigers crime syndicate is moving in.
So it's especially interesting because you think, oh, they speak Spanish. They must look what we would consider Hispanic. Except what you forget is that most of the immigrants, from what I can tell, are from the islands, like the Caribbean, Haiti, Dominican Republic. Okay. And so you can't tell by looking at someone where they're from
until they open their mouth and just
excuse me, do you have fire pepper? I'm sorry, fire pepper. They were looking for tinfoil, foil paper, fire pepper.
Actually, I thought it was a kind of pepper. I was like, what kind of peppers? Fire peppers?
Yeah, that's what I was. Then there was another time I was walking around. I didn't even work in that store, but you know how when you've worked in retail for years afterwards, people approach you even though you don't work in the store simply because you have the walk. I was walking around and excuse me, do you sell beer?
Beer, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But you see, she was asking it next to canned meats. And so I assumed she was looking for bear, and I had no idea how to react in that situation. So I was pretending to peruse the shelf for her, saying, that's interesting. Let's take a look, you and I together.
We'll go on an adventure, shall we, through all the canned meats to see what is available to us.
It is likely she had no idea what I was saying. So eventually, once I realized, okay, seriously, those signs they hang up above aisles and places.
People don't read them. I know. They don't. They're
lifesavers for me, because when people ask me in a store I've never been in before where things are,
look at it and it's like,
I become an instant expert in every store I'm in because I can read. Now, I don't begrudge this person for not reading because, again, I don't think reading English was their strong point.
I'll grant that. I will grant that. By the way, we were supposed to be talking about Syria, and
no, I think this is important. Let me tie all of this together.
Okay, yeah, tie this in, because I don't know where we're going right now.
I just wanted to let you know just how far into not like where I grew up.
Okay. And you grew up in New Jersey.
Right.
The trash basket of America.
Well, I grew up in southern New Jersey by the beach where we just didn't care about anything. Where I am now, it's interesting. The guys I work with, a lot of them are
TV show really fucked you guys over.
The funny thing is, most of them weren't even from Jersey.
I know, they're from New York. They're like freaking New York City, and then they come down to New Jersey, make a TV show, and they act like douchebags, and like you're just forever tainted as being like these backward assholes.
Yes, it is their fault that people think folks from Jersey are
okay.
jerks.
The driving,
we can blame them. Excellent. I am okay with
the speaking style and the driving doesn't help either, but still.
You want to know? You want to know something? Right. Let me tell you. I am often told, especially by family, that I don't want to walk around in this area at night because I'm afraid I'm going to get mugged.
You tell people that?
No, I don't.
People tell
you that. I walk around at night at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
And there's like no one there, I assume?
Actually, there are some. Usually it's the mentally ill people singing to themselves and doing other bodily functions.
And when they're
urination.
And then when they're not doing those bodily functions, you join in for a duet, right?
My counterpoint isn't quite what it was.
Assuming you know what song they're singing and it's not just made up.
If I can get any of the syllables. The point is, you want to know the shortest way to know you're safe?
What is that?
Learn to identify people's work clothes. Now, for some jobs, it's the bright red shirt. That's the uniform. But for some jobs, it's t-shirt and jeans or shorts. Because most of the people I see out on the street are coming to or from work.
Okay.
These people are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And
because they're still half asleep and their whole asshole sense hasn't woken up yet.
And let me tell you something.
Just too tired to be mean. That's what.
Some of them are even black.
You're blowing my mind here, Josh.
Let me tell you something. This idea that black, your skin color defines your character, your attitude on the job, you don't last long. Guys who work don't cause any trouble. Guys who work are great. Guys who actually do, especially the guys doing manual labor jobs, I could talk to them all night long. And when you say, oh, well, you have some token black friends, look, the majority of the population around here is black. Now, whether they're, African-American or whether they're Haitian, for example, you don't know until they start talking.
Right, and then they get the accent, and then you know.
Yeah, exactly. One of my managers, he is from Jamaica, and so okay, Josh, what I want you to do is, and it's fun. It's fun because they're decent. They're good.
Right.
You want to know
Well,
the folks who give us problems? Folks who aren't working.
mhm.
That's how you know. Especially now, I hate this is a stereotype, but this is equal opportunity. Especially the older moms who haven't held a job in a
Oh
few
God.
years.
Oh God.
They're the most entitled people I've ever met in my life.
I
Culture.
assume that you're
matters.
talking about people you meet along the road while you're walking around. You're meeting single moms who are just getting off from work or going to work or whatever.
I meet a few. Actually, some of the shifts at the place next to me, I heard some that, look, I need to go home because I need to be with my kid. And there's some issues, some good stories. I could tell a lot of stories, but I'll tell you something. We have more in common because we're working a crappy job that requires lifting a lot of things that no one else wants to do. And for that, we're better for it. We are actually better people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whenever you work at difficult jobs, it kind of like I'm not going to say it builds character because whenever people said that, in a way, it gives you a much deeper appreciation for difficulty in the world, and so you stop making base assumptions as often. Does that sound fair?
Yeah,
I feel like there's a better way, more profound way of explaining it besides just builds character. Yes, go.
Well, you probably stopped listening to Grandpa after.
Because it builds character. I'm like, oh, you know what? I almost wonder. I actually wonder if difficult work, and this is between you and me because no one else is going to understand this. RK. I wonder if hard labor brings about more K mentality.
It has to, because think about it. The rabbit is actually disincentivized. It is against its effective strategy.
Okay, and going to the whole thing where like you run into a lot of black, I assume construction workers, or you said jobs that are hard labor.
Construction workers or anyone who works night shifts, because night shifts around here,
it's all stocking. Yeah,
and they move, more weight more quickly than anyone I've ever seen, and they are just some of the nicest guys. Now, they're gruff, and so people just down the road from me who are living in their gigantic houses, it's like, oh, they don't care for that kind of company. But if coming from Jersey, this is actually a step up. Let me tell you. Well, they are great guys.
This is the thing I've observed too. Like when it comes, especially when it comes to men, and this is gonna be totally a sexist thing. So everyone, put your pacifier up your ass. Get ready for the butthurt. I have found, and I've worked in brutally hard, like literally jobs that's so hard that at age 26, there are certain jobs I can no longer do because my knee has been destroyed by brutal labor. Okay, unloading semi trucks, doing like moving heavy crates, all that shit. There is a certain level of effort at which any sort of prejudice kind of like ceases to matter. And the question is, are you someone I can trust to work with, and I know that you're gonna match me, and that I can have some level of trust in you, or you're just an asshole? Like that's it. That's
it worked in the Civil War. It worked with the Tuskegee Airmen. Seriously,
yeah.
You want racial tensions to die down? Start working some real jobs.
Because when you work hard jobs, the question is he a good worker? Is he not a good worker? Like, I've worked shit stuff at Walmart. I've done stuff working on the backs of semis. Nobody cares. There's been exactly out of like the 100+ people that I've spent hours and hours and hours with each person, like literally like that, when you go out and you spend 14 hours driving in a semi and coming back, like you spend a lot of time talking, and there's only ever one guy that I ever heard say racist stuff, and it was like fucking, he said some shit and I cut him off. I was like, no. And that was it. Because that's kind of shit, and then I never worked with him. I was like, look, I'm not going to work with this guy. This guy's an asshole. We're not spending time together. And everybody else has been fine because it's not, it's are you a good worker or not? And unfortunately, that guy was also lazy as fuck. So
I wonder if there's a connection.
The only people who have time to care about race over behavior are people who are not working hard enough. Which I'm not going to say like you should be, running like a dog all your life, but like, there's a certain point at which irrelevant bullshit has to matter to you in order for race to matter. Let's put it that way.
It's funny. It's almost as though these universities could go with a curriculum update. Just a thought. I have two in mind right now who could use a bit of an update.
By the way, do we want to talk about France and Syria and the fact that France needs to like get a second amendment up in this bitch?
Well, I think we should talk about it, especially before we talk about the event itself. Let's say one last piece on our little college snowflakes.
And this is all based off of like Mizzou and Yale, which holy fuck, the crybabies at that place cannot be understated.
When you start a hashtag, F Paris. Oh, you people colonized us years ago, so why should we care about and pray for you? Black Lives Matter activists thought it would be a good idea to say, no, F Paris, because you only care when white people are killed, and so we're not going to care about you.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Unless those people plan on doing reparations for the Moors doing slavery, and before them, whoever fucking did before that, the Ethiopians who did slavery, and before that, no, sorry,
Nubians. They were actually pretty brutal.
Until you plan on doing, at least apologizing, because apparently skin color automatically equates with whether or not you were a slave master or not. I mean, look, at this point in history, every single race has enslaved somebody else at some point. Every race has enslaved someone else at some point. And so going around saying,
our turn.
X amount of time ago, we were enslaved. It's like basically saying the last people to get enslaved get to be crybabies about it. And like you might have a case if you had actually been a slave, but okay, you would have a case if you had actually been a slave. Like at that point, I would have been like, yes, I understand why you're upset. Some person put you in chains and whipped you and did other stuff to you.
But here's the thought.
You have a right to be angry. But because your great-grandfather's grandfather was enslaved, and all the people who were slaves now are dead, and all the people who were enslaved are dead, and we're multiple generations down, and all the Jim Crow laws are gone, and you grew up in an area where now the racism you experience is some guy looking at you weird, and you think it was because he was thinking racist thoughts, grow the fuck up.
All right. I know you said, look, if you were enslaved, you have the right to, and I agree. Frederick Douglass had the right to be pissed off. He did. You want to know who wasn't bitter about it in the end? Who finally came to? The former slave who started one of the most successful schools in American history. Booker T. Washington, in which I read about in his memoir, Up From Slavery. You know what he wrote in that little memoir that he could only write in his spare time before lectures and on trains because he was so busy running this school? You know what he wrote? He said that the Negro in America is more free than the French citizen. This is all terrible timing with things that are happening in Paris, but it's worth mentioning. The Negro in America has more freedom than the average European citizen. This is just after Emancipation Proclamation, like a decade after or more. He said they have more freedom. And he said, things are looking up for us. You want to know why? Because the world wants everything and they want it now. And they just could not be bothered to care what color you are, so long as you are willing to help them get those pretty sparkly things that they want.
By the way, I'm checking out the Fuck Paris Twitter hashtag, and more people are right now. The hashtag is pretty much filled with people who are denouncing people who created the Fuck Paris hashtag, which is not surprising, but it still makes me happy.
That's good. At least there's that.
Yeah, so officially, Twitter is better than fuck Paris, and it is better than the Black Lives Matter idiots who are using that. So you've now been updated. By the way, okay, so Josh, if I was president, I would not be this much of a dick. But if I was president during this whole time, I would send a copy of the Constitution with all of its amendments to the French Prime Minister with the Second Amendment highlighted, and then scroll it on the side margin like, hey, this worked for us. Maybe you should give it a try.
Only if we can include in the margin, you might want to consider leaving out 16 and 17.
Ignore those. Ignore. And also our Supreme Court justice interpretations, just get rid of those.
Because everyone knows it. I actually had lunch with my folks earlier today. It was really nice, and my folks were complaining about Donald Trump's comment that saying, if it weren't for France's gun control policies, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. And they were outraged. My parents were like, that's not true at all. And to a point, that's right. It wouldn't have prevented the attack.
But it would have prevented 129 people from dying. By the way, let's take a moment.
And not just dying, being killed execution style.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, like, we should take a moment to say, it does suck. Regardless of the policies which let happen, led up to what have you, that doesn't stop what happened sucking for the people who have been affected by the attack, who were killed in the attack or injured in the attack. And so I do feel necessary to express compassion for those people, and the same that way that you would express compassion for any victim that would especially be in such a horrific, because you have people here who live in France who
I have family there.
No one gets up in the morning and goes, oh, maybe there's gonna be some asshole in a burqa or in a turban or in general with a fucking gun who's gonna go and try to kill me or successfully kill me. No, but people don't wake up thinking that.
Not here, not in the civilized world, also known as the West.
So, regardless, I mean, because, even here in America where the Muslims wouldn't, like, if anybody tried a terrorist attack, the only reason why, the Twin Towers was able to happen is because they managed to get, control of a few airplanes where there were no guns allowed. If they had tried doing stuff with box cutters on the ground, they would have been shot anywhere. So it's almost a fluke of policy that Twin Towers happened. And now we're having this happen, and no matter what happens, like you do have to empathize with the victims.
Look,
and also fuck the people who think that France deserved it. Like, seriously, because who the fuck, seriously? Oh, you agitated the Muslims by printing cartoons. Yes, because killing people and planning terrorist attacks is definitely a measured response to a cartoon. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I have family over there living in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin, who's a missionary in Paris, and I also have a friend from college, now originally from China, now currently living in Paris. She's fine, and he's fine. They're both okay. We got the message. They're okay. When I first heard the news, that was the first thing I checked to make sure they were okay. And when I first, I was just glad they were okay. I wasn't even interested in who did it. I just heard there was a shooting, later updated to there was an explosion. But
I just realized
my cousin and my friend are okay.
That's
all I cared about.
That is good to know, because whenever something happens, you have family there. Like, that's the first thing that you think of. And I hate to sound like totally insensitive by changing the topic, but for some reason, comments are disabled, and I don't know why. I just discovered that, and I'm somewhat aghast, because there's gonna be someone who's like these guys are assholes. These guys are like Anita Sarkeesian. They just don't want anyone to disagree. I don't like no, fucking disagree. By the way, I because I'm the type of person that's like, I will stay up until unhealthy hours of the night arguing with people that I should not be arguing with. Like people who are clearly had no idea, but like it's very important to me, almost to an unhealthy level, where I'm like, look, we need to come to some kind of understanding where I will sit here and I will defend myself because I believe what I believe for very specific reasons. Excuse me. I believe what I believe for very specific reasons, based on certain logic, based on certain philosophical foundations. And I want to know at the end of the day that what I believe is something that I can trust in myself. If for no other reason than being able to simply trust myself to function in this world, because if I'm functioning off of false pretenses, then that means I'm going to make mistakes in the future based on shoddy reasoning that I could have fixed had I been open enough to actually address whatever the issue was. Which is why I've become a very big fan of what I call cognitive dissonance, which is cognitive dissonance is the feeling that the brain gets when it tries to process what appears to be conflicting information, conflicting views and information. That's what cognitive dissonance is. And I love.
And you're a fan of that?
I am, because it is what the closest thing to mental agony that a person can get. But, and this is the thing, it's like exercising, right? Whenever you exercise, like whenever you first start exercising hurts. Exercising leaves you sore. But after a while, you get used to it, and exercising actually becomes something that you can deal with and that you enjoy. It's the same thing mentally. When you are willing to go through cognitive dissonance in order to address information that appears contradictory to your worldview, and ideas that are contradictory to the worldview, then you become stronger mentally, because once you're able to make everything make sense and you're able to make everything work, you become more adept with logic and with understanding things. And you also have put yourself in the position of being intentionally open-minded. Now, that doesn't mean that like every time someone says something, ridiculous, you have to, like for example, for flat Earth, I went and I looked at that shit and I was like, okay, this is really fucking stupid. The arguments that they're making are things that are almost easily disprovable. And so after taking a short look at it, I was like, okay, I have fairly good confidence based on what I know, based on what I've seen, based on my understanding of the world, that these are spurious and questionable things. And so having opened my mind to it, I now close my mind to it. I'm like, okay, that's going to the side now. And that's kind of how I operate my worldview. Because it's important to be able to deal with things that other people are putting forth for you. Otherwise, you turn into, not a bigot, but like someone who's just very iron against other views.
Our apologetics class was actually tasked with disproving flat Earth.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah. And it was funny because
when was this? When was it?
My senior year of high school. So
okay. So about 8. Okay. I will say, every time there's a picture, Stefan Molyneux did a thing where he had a conversation with a flat earther who told him that all the pictures of the curved Earth are either photoshopped or because of fisheye lenses, and because lenses are curved. And I sat here thinking to myself, I was like, oh my God, this guy needs to take a week of classes of basic physics 101, and he would realize how full of shit he is.
Just go to New York City. You can test it for yourself. In fact, that was actually one thing I said in class. This was early on. And I said, well, maybe we can't know until we go up and find out for ourselves. Go up. We went into orbit and we proved it. So it's over. And my teacher was very disappointed with me. He was disappointed that I would say that. I'd say, no, we knew this way earlier. It turns out he was more correct than even he knew. We knew that the Earth was not flat since the time of the Greeks. It always comes back to the Greeks.
By the way, I don't know if you've heard this recently, but apparently, according to flat earthers, the way they justify, according to flat earthers, the Earth is apparently just one big disk. Okay, and the sun, here's your disk, right? And the sun rotates around the disk, and that's how you have night and day. But of course, a rational person goes, oh, but you would still see the sun, and no matter what the angle. Apparently, get this, light does not go infinitely. It has a finite distance, and after that distance, it stops. So you have your disk, and the sun's rotating around, and as it rotates around, the distance of the light no longer is able to hit the Earth, and that's why the Earth goes dark.
Stars, and heck, we actually tested this. Look, and with a mirror,
the sun is only 3,000 miles away too. FYI,
look, we can test with a mirror. We can have the light bounce, and we can test the difference in intensity over a distance.
By the way,
so if it's measurable that it only goes a certain distance, we could measure the degradation here.
And plus, the other problem with this whole thing is that we have telescopes based on mirrors, which are not curved, which we are still able to observe the same phenomena by which we use lensed telescopes. So the whole notion is false on its face. It just, the amount of mental backflips that have to go on in order to justify flat Earth, and how we got to this based on Syria, I have no idea.
Well,
but
would you like me to relate it? Because I bet you I could. Okay. In fact, I will right now. Watch me, okay? We got into this because of your dedication to breaking down cognitive dissonance and somehow working it together to be intellectually consistent. Want to know who isn't doing that? It's funny because it is like talking to a flat earther when I'm talking to someone, a former, not classmate, but they were in the class just behind me, who says that maybe now the United States will reconsider their foreign policy after the Paris attacks, or maybe reconsider their gun policy, or maybe they'll consider that all people are equally affected. This person basically claimed that we're insensitive because we cared about Parisian deaths, but we didn't care about those poor people who died in Baghdad or at any of the other places that were murdered by the murdering savages that is ISIS. I said, I basically made the point, you know, you want to know the difference between them? The French weren't interested in a war. They had no part in it. They, in fact, tried to distance themselves. Well, how do you suppose that went? They started with the conclusion, it's America's fault because we're getting involved in things we don't. I could give... It's funny, you mentioned the Peloponnesian War earlier. That is something I always bring up.
You're going to bring it up. Josh,
here it is again.
I swear, I'm going to start putting a limit on the amount of time. You get like 5 minutes only to talk about the Peloponnesian War. Each section. Each time. All right, go.
This is the pretense. Assad actually said, hey, sorry about your attack on Paris. Maybe now France will reconsider their international policy, right?
Oh, jeez.
And so I almost want to tell these people who are saying it's France's fault that they got attacked because, or America's fault. You sound like a combination of Jeremiah Wright and Assad. Do you understand that? In fact, this is where these people are getting their... This is where they're getting their arguments from you. This is where they're getting the pretense. You know, that pretense, what everyone says the conflict is about, but it isn't really. No, the actual conflict is Islam wants to dominate the globe, and they're really ticked that they can't. And so they'll take whatever sucker punch they can get. This just happens to be the latest example.
Yeah, no, if Islam was actually the most advanced, if Muslim nations were the most advanced nations in the world, I think they would be more than happy to condescend to us and kind of leave us alone, maybe. But see, the thing is that they have to use Russian weapons and American drilling. You know, they have to use American technology to drill their oil to get the money to buy Russian weapons to fire at us. They're really mad that even the failed communist country is better off than they are, which is saying something. Like they're being told by Allah that they are the chosen ones, that they're the best ones, whatever. And here they are, unable to pick up their feet, unable to do anything, running around and to use a totally stereotype, like running around in fucking sandals and turbans, living off of the technology of these barbarians because they can't do shit for themselves. I mean, they stopped producing new things for the world and contributions to the world way back after the Arabic numerical system. That's it. That's
which they stole from India, by the way.
They stole from the Indians. That's the last thing they had. Like, if you look at the Nobel Prizes, right, which are the greatest contributions theoretically to the world for each year, as long as you're not talking about a peace prize assigned to an idiot president. In each year, it's like a whole bunch of Israelis, a whole bunch of Americans, a few from other countries, and then like one Arab, maybe one Arab
who studies here.
Yeah, it's almost like, and this is for the past ever since they started the Nobel Peace Prize, there's been almost nothing from the Arab world because their culture does not allow for it. They're specifically anti-science.
They can't even do anything as simple as eradicate Israel.
No, they can't, which is sad because they ganged up on that bitch. They ganged up on Israel and tried to curb stomp it, and then Israel just turned around and just blew the shit out of all of them. And then, of course, Israel turns around and decides to give away half the land that it just conquered.
Well, okay.
In exchange for peace. It's like, hey, you invaded me, and I bitch slapped you and then took some of your land. Here, please stop attacking me. Here's your land back. And then the Arab countries still couldn't keep their hands to themselves. It's like when you get to the point where Israel just literally there was like a full 13 months, I believe it was, from apart in 2011 to I believe the beginning of 2013, where Israel did nothing. It just sat there and allowed Palestinians to lob rockets at them, and it did not retaliate. And and I've had people tell me, if Israel would just not attack Palestine for a while, just to prove that it's the good guy, I would be convinced. Israel's already done that. It for a full fucking year, just sat there and let Palestinians just lob rockets at them, and they're like, see that we're not doing shit. They're attacking us. We just want to be left alone. And every single time there's been a reasonable treaty on the board, Israelis have said, okay, we can do this. We can do this. We'll stop attacking you. You can stop attacking us. It's great. And the Arabs have walked away from it every single time. The only time that they've walked away from treaties right now is the most recent one, which basically would force them to bend over and expose their flank, if you will.
Oh my.
To the Arabs by giving up an amount of land that is just insanely unreasonable. Which I would walk away from that too.
A land deal that would have worked in the original deal had Israel's population remained in that particular area. If, they'd just taken the deal back then Israel would have moved its development and, measured it to the smaller area. Now, it's too late. They said, okay, look, we're getting tired of getting attacked from all sides. We need this territory just to survive. We gave you the Sinai Peninsula. Mm-hmm. What more do you guys want?
By the way, I really, this is somewhat barely related. I really want to know what's going on with this Syrian war where they have all these refugees coming from. Because what kind of war would cause all your refugees to be mainly men, 75 to 80% men, provable both by statistic and by photograph, where every fucking photograph is just men, 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 men. And people who speak Arabic, who have been around these people, have listened to these people saying oh yeah, I totally want to rape that woman and that woman too. Let's plan our terrorists, and they're just speaking Arabic. They're just openly planning terrorist attacks. From several different people have commented, come out and said, I speak Arabic. I'm a European who speaks Arabic. This is what they were talking about. And I don't know what kind of fucking war is going on over there, but it is clearly not very serious if they're totally fine leaving their women and their children there and just sending over, all their men out of the country to go and colonize, the rest of Europe, because that is what's going on. There have been multiple imams who have outright said, we are going to outbreed you until we are the majority. And by the way, the fertility statistics are ridiculous. It's like one, I believe in France, it was 1.4 baby. Every French woman is having 1.4 babies on average. And then the Muslim women are having 3.5.
I think it's up to 4.
It might be 4. So and this is a problem with all European nations where the European women are not even having enough kids to sustain themselves. Like, what was it, fucking Sweden? Sweden was like producing commercials encouraging the couples to have sex. How bad is that? How bad is your situation where you have to encourage people to have sex? I mean, come on. And then Muslims are coming in and saying, we're just going to outbreed the shit out of you. And then they're doing it where they're coming in and having like 4 kids per mother. And understanding this, I almost, that there was that whole story about Israel a couple of years ago where it came out that one of the hospitals in Israel was like sterilizing the Arabic women who came into it without their consent. I almost wonder if that would have actually been a strategic, like a good strategy. Just like, we're going to keep doing whatever we're going to do, but now we're not letting your women have kids anymore because you're being assholes and just coming in and trying to outbreed us, and we're not going to let that happen.
That's pretty dark, dude.
It is dark, but also they're doing it. It's like, it's like saying someone. It's like saying someone, if someone says to you, like, Josh, I'm going to stab you. And then he takes out his knife and starts like pushing it into your stomach. At some point, you're going to have to be like, well, I guess I'm going to have to punch you back.
Oppressor. You can't do that in my safe space.
I'm not officially saying we need to go sterilize Arabic women because that would be, there are certain rights that come into this and stuff. But like, maybe don't let them in at the first place. That would be a good start. Maybe what's this? Are you this better not be a worship thing. What the hell's that?
No, it's the, couldn't we do that?
Okay. Please just prevent the bad guys from coming in our borders.
The people I was talking about, the conversation I was having, another person came in, I just want you guys to remember that most of the people who've died at the hands of ISIS are Muslims. The refugees were trying to run away from these people. Like, so how did these people follow them? I mean, that was the whole argument with closing our border. It's not the people running away from the cartels. It's the cartels running after them. We want to stop them from coming through. But people don't seem to remember the same door is open for both of them. I tell you something. This annoys me. We are so dedicated. Who was it? Who is it who said, guys, could you please, I think it was Stephen Crowder, who's like, hey guys, could you please throw your pity party later? Not after almost 150 people died. I would settle for stop calling them terrorists. Let me run something by you, John.
Okay.
Let's not call them terrorists. In fact, let's not use the term terrorist ever again.
Okay, I'm down for that.
Because terrorist means anything and everything. Because terrorist just means someone.
Right. I'm a terrorist because I supported the Tea Party once.
So let's not use that word, because then people have to go on. Well, just remember, not all Muslims are terrorists. So here's the term. Here's what I propose. Okay.
Okay.
I like the term Victor Davis Hanson uses. Islamofascist. If you are a Muslim who does not support a fascistic government via Sharia, you are not, by definition, an Islamofascist.
Well,
that is about as simple a distinction as I can make.
Okay. I do, although I will say I do like the term that Mark Levin uses, which is Islamo-Nazis.
All right. I could see that one.
Because I do want to be, there's a reason, there's a history behind this word, and it's very important to explain why it's not just a bullshit term. Because originally, you've seen pictures of Iran back in the 1960s, and the 1950s, and the 1940s, where it's just people who are dressed like people, like they look Western. And the thing is that for up until probably about less than 100 years ago, probably about like 50, 60 years ago, Islam was actually, fairly modernized in the same way that Christianity has been fairly modernized. But in the 1940s, Hitler actually began working with a few of the mullahs that were in Iran and Iraq. I believe those are two countries with two of the Muslim mullahs, and actually like worked together. And basically there was a level of conversation where it was like, I hate Jews. Oh, cool, me too. Let's kill Jews together. And during that time, Nazi propaganda and torture techniques were taught and transmitted from Nazi Germany to mullahs and the people that they worked and the armies that they trained in the Middle East. And so in a very real sense, the Islamo or the Islamofascism, the extremism that exists in Islam today is actually a direct byproduct of the Nazis and Islam working together back in the 1940s. And then it began to take hold, and it became culturally mainstream back in the 70s and early 80s. And then it became, that's when the whole burqa thing came in. And so now when we use the term Islamo-Nazi, it's literally because it's Islam after you add Nazism into it.
So I'd be all right with that one too, because it is interesting.
It won't gain traction with liberals. They'll be like, what's that mean? Stop using the word Nazi. It's fucking whatever his name, principle. But it's true. It's like literally.
Well, in order to avoid Murphy's Law, we can call him Islamo-fascist. And that is interesting because when Mark Twain in Innocents Abroad talks about going over there, you get the impression that the Mohammedans, as he called them, were just world-class underachievers. And that's about it. But none of them threatened him with weapons, so there may be something to this story. I mean,
well, yeah,
and again,
because,
this is
because it's actually religious policy, and Howard Bloom talks about this using specific reference and stuff. It's actually religious policy to be anti-science within the Muslim world, where literally science is just against. It's just against what it means to be religious. You cannot be both scientific and religious, according to contemporary descriptions or interpretations of Islam.
Thanks, Islam. This is why people assume all Christians are anti-science. It's because we have to cover for you. Thanks a lot.
Well, see, that's the thing. The whole anti-science vision of Christianity has only come about in less than the last 50 years, because you have to remember. The U.S. was religious, highly religious, up until the 90s. Even after that, probably it's only been the last 10 years that people have stopped calling themselves Christians, and that either non-practicing Christians or outright non-Christian, atheist, agnostic, deist, whatever, have gone from a small plurality to the majority. And all the way through that, all the way through the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, all the gains that we made, all the scientific discoveries, all the technologies that we created, all the information that we discovered, all of that was primarily done by Christian people, specifically white Christian men. If you want to get really
Christian white men.
If you want to be really dickish about it and rub it in, that's who it was done by. Everything from computers and nuclear technology to submarines, boats, all the way back to penicillin. Everything, medicinal, every single area of technology that we have was basically done by Christians. And at some point in this past decade, where this whole idea of evolution, which started back in with Charles Darwin, I think back in the forgive me if I'm wrong on this. Was it the 1850s or the 1950s? Darwin would have been the 1850s.
Obviously, because, Karl Marx dedicated his manifesto to Charles Darwin. So,
yeah, okay. So I say myself from acting. The unsurety just makes me sound like an ass. Like, no, guys, I'm just making shit up here at this point. But it didn't enter the American mainstream until less than 100 years ago.
Scopes trial.
The Scopes trial, that's right. And there were people who were like going, "Oh, this is so cool. This evolution is so cool. I'm just going to call myself an atheist now."
So hot. I actually heard an interesting theory.
Evolution. Let me just finish this. Evolution has only been in one or two branches of science. Mathematics has zero to do with evolution. Chemistry has zero to do with evolution. Neuroscience has very little to do with evolution. Like, there's some people going, oh, this happened, it's because of evolution, but that's it. Like, there's no actual evolutionary science going on. Physics, literally like 90% of what we call science has nothing. It's like evolution here or the rest of science over here. But because there's been this huge emphasis on evolution being scientific and anyone being against evolution being anti-scientific, there's been this, what is really just a culturally created divide between Christians and science that's more imaginary than anything else.
It's interesting. I heard a theory once that one of the reasons why evolution was pushed harder than the evidence actually had to bear, I think they've done a pretty good job in keeping their stuff together in more recent years, but originally it was because the Soviet Union would post fake education score numbers and say the reason is because we're atheists who believe in evolution.
Oh my God.
That's pretty much how they worded it too. And so the progressives who were really trying to be like the Soviet Union because that was the future, they're like, I can't believe we have all of these Christians who don't believe evolution. And the funny thing is, the version of evolution they believed, it almost doesn't resemble at all the one that we have in textbooks today. So that makes
ironically, our version of evolution has, in fact, evolved over the past decades. Oh, by the way, I know there's a few of you watching. We're going to set this up at some point because I only just discovered this past hour that apparently Google Hangouts is a dick and won't let it do live commenting on YouTube, and I don't know why. But at some point, we're going to just start switching over to YouTube live events. So in the future, when we talk about evolution, the guys who are like, you guys are Christian, you guys suck. Let me explain to you why you guys suck, because you guys are Christian and you don't believe in evolution, and therefore you guys suck. We can have that conversation, and I will gladly address any of your questions about whether or not we suck because there are some tenets of evolution which we are skeptical about.
Yeah. You guys are
and
Christians. You're not skeptical enough. You're skeptical of evolution.
We will discuss climate science, and we will discuss the politics involved, and we will discuss because fuck it, we had the conversation earlier about the importance of being open-minded, and yeah, dude, we will talk all fucking night until I have work in the morning, and then I'm gonna go to bed because making money is more important than talking to people. I'm sorry.
Sidebar. You want to know how I deal with the evolution question?
What's that?
I say, all right, the way we set up our study of evolution, we're just collecting data. The science is just collecting data. It's the interpretations afterwards that may be scientific or not. I don't care about the interpretations. I only care about the data because most of our interpretations are going to be proven wrong in about 10 years anyway. No, dinosaurs look nothing like they did in the movie Jurassic Park. And you guys are trying to use this to say how dumb creationists are. We weren't the ones who pushed those images, remember, guys. So here's how I say it. Evolution is set up. The way we interpret is with no intervention, with no God, no anything else. This is how it would have played out in nature using these processes. A Christian generally believes that there's a starting point, that evolution isn't starting from a single cell, that it's starting from a variety of different sources and then branches out from there. And then evolution can have its say. Now, whether that was 5,000, 10,000, or a billion years, we'll talk.
Mm-hmm.
But for everything else, it's data collection. And unfortunately, it gets complicated from there because we don't know how to set up the experiment. It's the same with the age of the universe. How do you prove that the universe isn't just created moments ago with the appearance of age? It sounds absurd, but it's actually kind of difficult to prove.
It's like the thing with the Matrix. It's how do you prove that you're not actually in the Matrix and you're not just a brain? And of course, Rene Descartes addressed this years ago.
Yeah, well, he did.
He didn't address it years ago. He was like, "Man, what if we're just brains?" And then theoretically, he also just got really high after that. It was like, whoa, for his life.
And so, because of that, in order to avoid devolving into absurdity, we tend to leave it alone. We say, okay, look, if God made trees, for example, he wouldn't have made acorns, he would have made fully grown trees. In the same way, if he made the universe, if light passing through the universe has a purpose, then yes, it would have to be a fully formed beam of light hitting us. It wouldn't actually be, taking billions of years to get to us. However, how do you propose we set up that particular experiment? Now, I'm told that in higher applications of quantum physics, we may actually have that answer in about 50 to 100 years. We may actually have the experiment to set this up. And so I'm making the request. A long time ago, a scientist by the name of Bacon requested the Catholic Church, look, yeah, I love that name too.
Scientist by the name of Bacon. That's just Professor Bacon. What do you think?
He said, look, Catholic Church, could we have a chat? I need 100 years or so to sort out the data I'm working with. Could we just have a pause? We'll just call a truce for a while. I don't remember if it was actually
100-year truce. Oh my god, that would be...
It just said, look, just give me a certain amount of time. I forget if it was 100 years or not. I just want to collect data, just see what we do. Are we okay with that? And the Catholic Church, of course, agreed. They said, yeah, sure, read away. But we're not going to stop teaching what we're teaching, and we'd prefer it if you guys stop insisting what you're saying is true before you have evidence. Are we good? Are we good? The scientists went back on their word. And so that the whole concept, they made Galileo, recant his work. Well,
no,
he went back on the agreement, so yeah, of course
it's not just that Galileo, okay, aside from it, Galileo was just a dick. Like, if you look back at history, Galileo was just a giant cunt to, and he was, first off to everybody, but especially to the Catholic
Church. For crying out loud.
So this whole thing of what the church persecuting Galileo, no, Galileo was being a dick, and the church was like, you know what, fuck you to Galileo. That's what happened.
We could have excommunicated you if we wanted to. We're being nice. You gave us absolute authority, and we gave you a slap on the wrist, and this is your oppression? Seriously, you guys don't understand human nature. If you think
but I did want to say, I just want to say the whole question of like whether the chicken came first or the egg, it depends on who you ask. Okay, so if you ask an evolutionist, they'll say, oh, the egg, of course, because dinosaurs came first and they laid eggs. You ask a creationist, they'll say, oh, the chicken came first, because God made the chickens and then the chicken laid the eggs.
Unless, of course, you think that the chicken actually came from another form of bird.
Unless you're talking to a practical person, in which case they say, well, it depends. Is it lunchtime? Is it breakfast time or is it dinner time?
Oh.
I'm sorry, that was a stupid joke. But I had to put
Technically, the egg did come first because the modern chicken, it's actually a domesticated form of another bird that probably no longer exists.
Don't be an ass, man. Don't.
So no matter what, it's the egg.
Well, gee, thanks. That was really great
I think
of you.
The problem was, well, can non-chickens lay chicken eggs? But I mean, if we can make frickin' ligers, like half lion, half tigers, nothing seems impossible anymore.
We'll just get a platypus and we'll get on it. It's a fucked up animal anyways. We can probably just do some more genetic shit with it. But yeah, end conclusion to this conversation. Get rid of illegal aliens. Syria sucks. Don't go there. And Paris needs to have like guns in there in the hands of citizens.
And for crying out loud, college kids, we were able to talk about this and have a laugh. I'd like to see you be able to do the same.
Oh my God. The people going, let's just remember we've all been equally oppressed after Cyril got no, I'm sorry. No, some guy yelling nigger out of a car door is not the same thing as 129 people dying from Muslim Muslim weapons and guns. Not the fucking same. What universe do you live in, man?
Go take your privilege outside.
Of the two of us, I'm going to have an aneurysm before you, Josh. I just want you to know. Probably.
You kidding? Before this is over, I'm going to shave my beard in protest.
No, don't. Well, you are looking rather Muslim over there, Josh. What do you have to say for yourself? Fucking terrorist commies. I say we just I don't know. I'm genuinely concerned that we're at a place in our world right now where you can have people who, and I know human condition, and I know, the way the brain works that allows for this to happen, but there's a part of me that just sits back and goes, how can you have 420 million people in a section of the world who don't care that people from their same culture are going around and bombing people and attaching, bomb vests to themselves and going into crowds and blowing the shit up? Because the thing is like, you can say, 420 million people, not all of them are violent, right? Okay, granted. But there's clearly enough space in the culture where that thing can, like if Americans started doing this shit, there would be a fucking, like the culture of America does not allow for this to happen. When was the last time an American had a problem with Muslims and we fucking put on a vest full of ceramic pellets and went to Chicago and blew ourselves up? When was the last time that ever happened?
We have something to live for.
Never. When was the last time an American hacked off another American's head who wasn't Muslim? I don't know, but it's been a long fucking time. There's no space in our culture for this to happen. In the culture of 420 million Muslims, there's room for that to happen. So you can say whatever you want about them, most of them being peaceful. The culture is fucked.
Even the ones who aren't trying to kill us support Sharia. So they're not going to get involved because they're like, I hate how you do it, but I'm glad you're doing it. That's the secret.
What is it?
Just a thought.
Seriously. If I had you can say it, and I'm not saying, of course, that America is perfect because we can have that whole conversation. And it's not because of American imperialism.
Conversation because we're a lot better than the alternative.
We're
are able to have that conversation.
Like where do you want to be? Do you want to be in a Western culture, or do you want to be in the culture where people saw off each other's heads and put on bomb vests and throw acid on people and drown women and hang gays? What? Because of a fucking cartoon? No. Because some Jews built a house on a piece of land that no one gives a fuck about? Like, look, listen. Maybe the Palestinians were displaced, which, sucks for the people who were displaced. But nobody in the Arab world cares about the Palestinians. The Palestinians live in apartheid in every other camp in the Arab world where there are Palestinians. They live in apartheid, separated from the rest of the Muslim world. The Muslims don't care about the Palestinians. They don't. There are only two ways that they care about the Palestinians. One, so they can use the Palestinians for their proxy war against Israel, and two, because it gives them a reason to bitch and hate Israel. Aside from the fact that they're Jews. That's it. That's all that the only fucking reason they care about Palestine. As a people, they don't care. There's no part of them that goes, it really sucks that the Palestinians got displaced. They don't care about that.
Palestinian is a Roman term that means Jews. Mark Twain actually used it to refer to the people of Palestine.
Yeah, Palestine itself has no history. Palestine is not, is a region, not even a country. It's just a region, which right now only lives because Israel lets it live. And I don't just mean that in the case of Israel doesn't bomb the shit out of them. Israel sends them food every single week. If Israel stopped giving Palestine food, Palestine would starve out. There would be no Palestine. There would just be a whole bunch of dead fucking bodies because Palestine is taking food from Israel, then taking bombs and rockets from Iran and shoving them over the fucking border towards Israel again. Which, by the way, talk about biting the fucking hand that feeds you. Like, oh my God. Like, that's, it's there's
ungrateful. Like Black Lives Matter, and there's Palestinians.
Like, it's one thing to be an immature kid who gets really mad at your mom because she wouldn't let you have a cookie out of the cookie jar, and then you're really mad at her even though she just made you dinner. Then there's fucking this, which is just retarded. No, at this point you are moral scum. The Palestinians fighting the war are moral scum. That's it. That's the end of the conversation in my view. And I'm not necessarily saying that Israel should blow Palestine off the face of the map, but if one of their nuclear silos accidentally launched and hit Palestine and wiped it off, I would protest it very meekly. Actually, I think if Israel nuked Palestine, I would be kind of like off the Israel train, but you know,
I wouldn't be.
Really?
Depends on the target. If it's a civilian target, sure, but
well, given the size of Palestine, there and the fact that they throw women and children in front of bullets, every
tactical nukes are actually surprisingly small blast radius.
So only 3 schools will get hit instead of 5.
That's the main problem. What I would do if I were Israel, I would find a way to draw the Arab armies out into the open.
Well, that's the thing is Palestine can never last in a real fight. It never could.
And they know it.
And they know. That's why they fight the way that they do. And so it puts you in this situation, like the way that I view it in my mind is like, imagine that you had a neighbor who was a total dick to you, right? And that one day they just come up and they punch you in the face. They sucker punch you in the face, and then they hold their baby out in front of them, and to block your punches. And they keep punching at you, you know? And of course, in this situation, because Israel can't really move and because Palestine can't really move, you know, you can't necessarily run away from the fight. If you sit there and do nothing, then he's going to beat you to the pulp. On the other hand, if you punch back, you're going to risk hitting their baby. And so that puts you in a really uncomfortable position because you can't, their kid is not worth more than your life, right? Especially if they're putting the baby there. So in the very real scenario where we have which is very stupid, but double tap drone strike hits, they're the ones pushing for women and children to go and stand in the crater. They're the ones who put their bases in fucking schools, in hospitals, and then make a big fuss about it whenever the UN gets a hold of, whenever Israel strikes back and some people get killed and then UN goes and investigates.
Which is a shame because, I mean, if you think about it, when America used the bomb, and we did, we dropped the leaflets, we warned them, we told them to get out.
Yeah, like a full 2 weeks ahead of time, if I remember correctly. They had time. We just said sometime around this date, one of these 3 days, we're going to bomb the shit out of one of these 20 cities. Please, we are only interested in attacking the royal emperor and his army and the military occupation that has you guys brainwashed into following them. Please, if you have any loved ones, go talk to them, get them out of the city, get yourselves out of the city. We're only interested in ending the occupation by the military force. With plenty of time. Yeah, you're right.
And so, I hate to say it, but there may come a point. It's not something we like to talk about, but if they make another push on Israel may have to make one of those tough choices.
Here's the issue with that, is that right now Israel's in a catch-22 because if it makes a big move like nuking Palestine, that's going to be
a nuke. There are plenty of non-nuclear weapons you could use to get the job done.
But the point at which Israel says, I warned you, and then wipes out Palestine is the moment when all these other Arabic companies, now Syria has its own shit going on, but Iran is going to go and try to make a move. Saudi Arabia might try something. Afghanistan might try something. And it's going to end up in another 3 or 4 nation against one nation kind of war. And that will be at the point where the UN may try to say, oh, no, now we need to invade you too. Whether or not that's going to happen. But you know what I mean? Like there comes at a point where the deck is so stacked that you can't adequately protect yourself because the people who are supposed to be on your side are a bunch of fucking pansies who can't understand true evil when they see it. Well, and don't understand the idea of the notion that one culture might actually just want total war until either they're eliminated or have eliminated everyone else.
Maybe not for long, John. Even if it's temporary. Their reports, I'm hearing it a lot from left-wing outlets. They're concerned of the far-right shift following the Paris attacks.
Oh yeah, that's
there may
be far right shit.
Now, I'll be honest. I don't actually think that Israel will ever need to use anything close to nuclear weapons. Not even strong non-nuclear. I don't think it would. I'm not sure I'd have a problem with it under certain circumstances, but I don't think it'll ever happen. So it's easier.
If it did, the Arab world as we knew it would no longer exist.
Pretty much.
Like Israel has 500 nukes. It is more than enough to take out every Arab country that exists, all their population centers, and still have bullets in the chamber. More than enough. I just don't want to see them do it. But now we have a culture, a Muslim culture, that it's like in the Quran it says, wage jihad until you have subdued every country, especially the Jews, which they've referred to as little Satan. We are the great Satan. They are the little Satan. Why they get the little Satan, I don't know. Because they're the ones that Muhammad said nothing about the U.S. Said nothing about America, but apparently we're the big Satan just because our dicks are bigger than theirs. Economically, our dicks are bigger than theirs. We are in many ways Israel's big brother. Also, it's been like 2 hours. I need to get to bed here soon.
Yeah, good idea.
Which, not to end this on a dour note or anything.
Look, we'll probably end up talking about the Paris attacks later. I'm praying for Paris. I am. I hope they can return to normalcy as soon as possible.
This is something of this is one of those hard lessons where you have to understand, like, and actually, even without Paris, all of Europe has been slowly transitioning, and depending on the location, slowly transitioning more and more to the right. Because at some point, you realize what's going on, right? And so, there are obviously, the far left lunatics who are like, oh yeah, just free information. Not all Muslims, guys, come on, stop it. But at the same time, you have Sweden, where the vast majority, and I mean like 80% of all the rapes that happen in Sweden are perpetrated by first and second generation immigrants. And guess what countries those immigrants came from? Only one area. And in Paris, where they have whole section, where there are open protests by Muslims calling for Sharia law and the implementation of Sharia law. Where there are certain areas of Paris and certain areas of France where you don't want to go unless you're Muslim, where the police don't go. And these people are seeing this. There are only so many times that you can have a sister or a daughter or a mother who gets raped by a Muslim immigrant before you go, I've noticed all the rapes are happening from one specific group, and they're treating women in general really shittily. And the videos that happen where you see, Muslim men coming in as refugees and then assaulting women and talking in Arabic about raping people and committing jihad and doing all this. So, the people who are isolated in Europe who still haven't seen what's going on, yeah, they're still spouting their liberal bullshit. But everyone else who's going and like seeing this stuff and with their own eyes, especially after Paris, are going like, hold the fucking phone. Maybe these Muslims are a little bit worse than what I had been led to believe. Maybe when they said that they wanted to conquer all of us and kill all of us and rape us and rape our women and children and all that stuff, maybe they were actually serious. I mean, the whole 9/11 thing was, fool me once. And then now this happens. And now this is where that huge right shit is going to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen at this point. Anyways, you've been sitting there.
I wish it didn't have to be this way.
No. Nobody likes being proved right through brutal death. Nobody likes it.
It's the Greek tragic view of war and history. Even if we win, it's still no less tragic. Or rather, it will not cease to be tragic if we win. I argue the world is worse off if the West loses.
Yeah, we're gonna. I plan on being a millionaire living in a bunker somewhere in Nebraska or Colorado. That's like legitimately like my plans. I have specific plans that are going to come to fruition, and like after doing the normal things that rich people do, get a money suit, get a Porsche, all that shit. Yeah, I'm going to for fun, and also maybe not fun, build myself the ability to basically disappear in the mountains for a while if I need to. And of course, Josh, you're invited. I will send my personal jet to come pick you up, and then we will host podcast from there. All right,
pirate radio station.
That's exactly what we're all about here at the Conservative Echo Chamber. For those of you who just joined, you're literally at the end of this radio show, this online. Yeah, we're gonna have to set this up so that you can actually comment on, because really I can't believe I didn't realize before now that no comments are probably. You'll be able to comment once the show ends, but like right now apparently it's totally disabled. We're gonna have to fix that. We'll have to switch to like live YouTube streams instead of Google Hangouts, because apparently there's a difference.
Because this is not a safe space.
This is no. We want to hear your voice, because really it is so fucking boring to go and watch a live stream and be able to say jack shit. Like that's like boring to not be able to interact. And we're here to like talk and I know it's so odd because we are called the Conservative Echo Chamber. It is tongue in cheek. And we'll see you later on. Cling tight to your guns and also your Bibles, and pork. By the way, you heard about like the one prankster who put like this raw bacon around the handles of mosques. Best thing ever. Great. I just want to do that. I just want like I'm not enough of a dick to do it, but like if I was, I would just find mosques and just put bacon fucking around that shit. Just
the ones that preach death against the culture.
Just going like let's say Allah Akbar, death, or Allah Akbar. Fucking I was just like every time I think of like Muslim words, like Team America comes to my head. Oh, Turka Muhammad Jihad. Turka, yes. Allah Akbar. Just bacon everywhere, man. And then like I'm gonna get like bacon laced bullets. Like we're gonna do this bitch up. Anyways, we're the Conservative Echo Chamber, and we will see you guys later. Goodbye.